What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Binge Empire podcast. This is Brian here with my co hosts, producer Dave and Kyle. And today we're talking season 2 premiere of the hit video game turned Max TV series, The Last of Us. I don't think either of you guys have played the video games. I actually just wrapped my first playthrough of The Last of Us part 2 about a month ago. So this is all kind of fresh in my mind, which means I'm going to be super harsh with my criticisms on everything that doesn't perfectly line up with the game. No, I'm just kidding. There's actually quite a few things that have not lined up to the game, but last season, the discrepancies, they did a pretty good job with it. So I don't have too much to nitpick. Of course, we're going to get into it, but for my spiel, the video games are pretty much as advertised. They are beloved within the community, and they are just fantastic games. They're renowned for their storytelling, which lends to such a compelling TV show as The Last of Us Part 1 was. And I'll tell you right now, season 2 has a little bit of a different tone. The characters, I mean, it's a 5-year time skip, so they're a little bit more grown up, specifically Ellie. So it's a different story, but in a lot of ways, very much the same. So I'm really looking forward to it. And for my money, season 2's off to a good start, one episode in. But I've done a lot of talking. Dave, Kyle, our non-video game players, purely TV show spectators, what are you guys thinking of season 2? And have you guys rewatched season 1 or anything like that?
So I'll start since you said my name first. I will say that I didn't rewatch season 1, but I did a couple recap videos on YouTube. I think Screen Rant did one, and I forget the other YouTube channel that I did for the other one, but they were both really good, about 15 minutes each. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, I wanted to get 2 in at least to make sure that one didn't miss, some information. And that way I was pretty confident in my knowledge going into this. Just to recap, yeah, I've never played the video games before. I am a big gamer, but for some reason, these games kind of just went over my head a little bit. I never got into them, but big fan of season 1. It was so intense, and it was funny because at the time, I think Fallout came out not too long after The Last of Us, and there was these big back and forth discussions of, which was the better video game adaptation. And, Arcane was also, I think, at the time coming out as well. So, but I think at the end of the day, just the fact that there is an argument to be made for each of these shows being video game adaptations, and it's a very good sign that we're not in the Dragon Ball Evolution days of live action adaptations anymore. Things seem budget, CGI, all of that stuff has gone up immensely with TV shows. So I was a big fan of season 1. This episode, I will say, wasn't that great of an episode, but it was a great episode in terms of laying the foundation of where we're going to be headed in season 2. Season 1 felt like a lot of moving around. We started on the East Coast, making our way to Wyoming to meet up with Tommy. But this season kind of feels like to me that we're stationing ourselves in Jackson, Wyoming. I don't know how much, moving around we're going to be doing all too much, but it feels like for the time being, we have a set scene that's going to be around for a while, unlike what it was in season 1. Very much looking forward to our discussion of this episode and future episodes to come.
Yeah, I'll probably end up reiterating a lot of what Dave said. So I didn't rewatch season 1 leading up to this. I did some recaps, some smaller bite-sized content, let's say. In the lead up, I really enjoyed season 1. We covered it on the podcast, and I thought it was a blast. I am a sucker for the genre. I love zombie things. It just speaks to something middle school me was always in love with. So it's just always fun to dive back into things like this. And I'm really glad that I'm not a video game player. So we are also we're about to wrap up Wheel of Time on the Binge Empire feed as well. And it is almost exhausting being someone who's aware of the original content. It feels just refreshing to be on the other side of things and just not have really any expectations. I don't really have an opinion on how the characters look and the order of events that are happening. It's just as refreshing to watch with these eyes that have not seen any of the content before. Although I will say some of the story beats I'm aware of, but I think that I'm just really looking forward to the rest of this season. I thought this was a great first episode to kind of reorient orient ourselves. I really liked how it started, and I'm sure we'll get there probably right after this, but like it started exactly how it ended almost, which was very nice for me. It just felt like, okay, this is like a great just continuation into that kind of 5-year gap as well. So I think this should be fun for the next however many weeks we'll be here.
Yeah, and Max, I feel like always does a good job with their recaps, especially when you're starting a new season. So I think they committed a nice 30 seconds to each of those episodes from season 1, which looking back, they were really like little self-contained plot lines, even within the episodes, the Bill and Frank stuff. 2 nights ago, I came home and at midnight threw on the episode 1 of season 1. And about an hour in, I realized that was like a solid 95-minute episode. And I was like, oh, dang, I kind of want to go to bed. But episode 1 was so good last season.
Yes.
No, so
The
I'm just kind of
Batty
reiterating. That scene still gives me chills. And going on what you said, Kyle, you're a fan of the genre. I think The Last of Us does it so well. They kind of give you just enough like science backing to say why these cordyceps are so intimidating, why they just kind of proliferate wildly, why it's been so successful at taking over the globe and how quickly it did. But couldn't agree more. I think The Last of Us does the genre right. But I want to go back to what you said, how they started. The first scene of this episode was the final scene of season 1. The drama at the hospital had just happened. Ellie finally regains consciousness. And essentially, Joel has told her, hey, I got you out of there. They wound up not needing you for your immunity, whatever, which is obviously not the full truth, to say the least. And she just says, swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true. Joel says, I swear. There's a little moment of silence where does Ellie buy it completely? Maybe not, but she says, okay, she accepts what he's saying and they move on. But that is kind of our framing of this entire season, because as we move forward, it's a 5-year time skip. Ellie is now 19 and super angsty, like she's a teenager, but all of this kind of stuff, as Joel been telling me the whole truth, she somewhere deep inside knows that maybe he's not telling her everything. So that is a great reminder of where we're at going into this season 2. But before we get ourselves to Jackson, Wyoming, we also see this band of new characters who we have not met before. This is going to be predominantly Abby and Owen, but also Nora, and for the life of me, I can't remember the other two's names. But what did you guys think of them? Kind of this scene with the giraffes and the graves with the firefly dog tags?
If I'm honest, it almost felt like this scene was like almost incongruent. It just felt like it was like almost taking place in a different world. It was very colorful and like the weather was nice, but like the content was very sad, but they all looked very put together. It just was, it felt like there was a disconnect between like what my eyes were seeing and what I was anticipating, like what should be happening. But I like the part they're supposed to play in the story, let's say, that they're showing us here. It's nice to have, I guess, the human antagonist. I feel like we talked about it a ton in season 1 of a lot of the times you get into these types of shows and it's really, they're just about explorations of like what it is to be human, more so than it even is about like the monsters that are around. And this whole revenge angle on our heroes, who are what I guess what we consider to be our heroes, and something we always talk about in the podcast as well is that almost everyone can be the main character of their own story. And I'm really looking forward to kind of how that builds throughout. But for whatever reason, the color and everything, it just felt slightly incongruent with what I was watching. I have no idea why I was thinking that, but
I liked the introduction to the young Fireflies here. I mean, we get a group of younger adults with varying perspectives on what their next step should be as the Firefly group, what remains at least of the Firefly group. I liked how they talked about Joel and Ellie as like a myth kind of legend ordeal, and people in this world from that perspective, they kind of brush it off saying, oh, they're not real, they don't exist, or we don't know for certain that they exist. And just kind of shows that people in this world really do not have much hope. So when they even hear something of the idea of someone having an immunity, they just brush it off as, oh, there's no way that's possible. And, we don't know that that even exists. I thought it was a really great introduction. I've heard so much about Abby, again, being a pretty big gamer. Like I'm familiar of some of the characters in The Last of Us. So my expectations for Abby are very high. I honestly, based on what I've heard of her, didn't expect her to be one that was going to be hunting Joel. I honestly thought it was going to be a character that was going to be, a friend of Ellie's, and he kind of adopts two children. But and it's funny how we get introduced to her that she is going to make sure that Joel has a nice, slow, painful death, and that was something that I was not prepared for, knowing or at least hearing about Abby through video gamers.
Yeah, so Abby's going to be a big character for us for sure. Dave, that's a stifling hot take that you think, it'll be an adoptive daughter aside Ellie. That's just a very interesting angle to approach that.
I just thought that was how it was going to, like, I thought it was how it was going to start. I honestly didn't know that she would be the quote unquote villain, of the start of the season. I think it's a great take. I was kind of shocked for sure.
Right. So, and did you guys kind of understand the framing of this scene? They say Joel already got like a 3-day head start. So this is supposed to be immediately in the wake of kind of the end of season 1.
And he took the car. So they would have to catch up not only 3 days behind, but they would have to do it on their feet versus having a vehicle.
And 4 of the 5 people, the 5th being Abby, understand that is a tall order, and it's probably not in their best interest to just put aside everything else and track this guy with all their might. So Owen is kind of the insistent voice of reason that says, hey, there's this guy Isaac who has a Firefly outfit supposedly in Seattle who can take us in. So he's like, they might have resources, we'll regroup there, but he does essentially promise, I will help you get Joel when the time is right. And that's kind of where we go. For my money, the line read, but not so much the line read, is the line being written by an actual paid writer himself, saying slowly, when we kill him slowly, made me roll my eyes and cringe. And I thought that the entire episode was going to suck, because I don't recall that ever being said in the video games. And not for that reason. I just don't think anybody should ever say, we're going to kill him slowly. It's like, whoa, okay, just relax a little bit. I don't know if you guys thought that as well. That wasn't even I played the video games and that was off. I just thought it was a terrible line.
Yeah, I thought everything was well acted, though. I would say, agree. I think, not that I guess Owen is the other guy who was talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not that he had like a ton to chew on, but I felt like the emotion that Abby was bringing, I thought was very believable. And honestly, before we got on to record, I read that this filming took place like 3 days after her own mother's funeral, like in real life.
Dang.
Which is crazy. So, yeah, I mean, kudos to her for A, showing up, and B, I thought everything worked. I was believing all of it, but yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from with like the let's be descriptive about the way.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a little on the nose and didn't really have to be said. I think the whole scene, you could tell that she wasn't particularly happy with Joel and would like to exact some revenge. But
last comment I'll make, and this is purely because I know Kathleen was thinking it, and we'll probably get mad if we don't say it, but shout out to, I believe, Tati Gabrielle, who plays, I think, Nora from the 100 Kaleidoscope. What else is she in?
I think Sabrina, Chilling Adventures.
Yeah, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Yeah. She's in a lot, so
she's great too. I actually didn't know she was playing Nora. Go ahead, Dave.
And just to confirm, we haven't met Isaac yet. This isn't a Firefly that we have met before in season 1, correct?
No, okay. You wouldn't have. And the funny thing about this world is just that this is rumor. This guy Owen is like, yeah, supposedly there's this dude in Seattle who like might still be alive and has this band that may accept us. So like, that's just the logistics that we're playing with in this world. It's like, we have nowhere to go. I heard this rumor by a passerby. Maybe it'll work out.
Yeah.
So we get our intro. It was nice to hear those little guitar strums. I do love the music in The Last of Us. It always hits. And right from the intro, we get the 5-year time jump. And then we get a hard cut to Ellie, who is sparring. She has a tattoo on her arm, clearly has grown up a little bit and has become, I don't want to say rough around the edges, I'll say tougher. She is just a tougher human being, both physically and mentally, and that becomes apparent very early on. So what did you take first impressions of the new grown-up Ellie?
I know that it's like a huge sticking point, Bella Ramsey, but to me, they seem fine. Seems very believable. The 5-year skip, Ellie becoming kind of this disgruntled person. Sure, at some level she feels, held back and babied by the people around her because we know about the immunity thing. We see it kind of later on with the Tommy stuff. She wants to be able to, fend and fight for herself. I feel like everything makes sense. She seems very believable that this would be like that. I honestly enjoy the character a lot. And in my mind, she's 19. I think Joel, someone ends up saying it later in the episode, like she's 19. Like this is how kind of 19-year-olds, especially within these rigid colonies with all of these rules, act. It all seems very reasonable. I'm excited to see how she continues to grow, I think, throughout this season.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kyle. We even kind of said it last season as well. I still don't understand all the Bella Ramsey hate for her as Ellie. I think they've been doing a fine job as Ellie. Again, I'm from a show watcher's only perspective, but I don't understand the hate. I think they are doing an incredible job. It was great to see Ellie become this bruiser. That armbar was pretty sweet. She's come a long way, Ellie has, and it was quite the introduction. I just think it's funny that it's been 5 years of time and her and Joel somehow still haven't communicated once about, how to make their relationship better. I'm sure we'll maybe get some parts of it, but that the fact that she's been this, as you said, it rough around the edges or tough around the edges, maybe, for 5 years straight is pretty crazy to me though. But yeah, I thought she was incredible here.
Interesting to me. At first I was thinking somewhat similarly, but I'm feeling more and more that it'll be maybe a recent thing. It felt like everyone was kind of having these conversations around to Joel with Joel of like, maybe it hasn't been like this for 5 years, but it's been an extended amount of time, but maybe not the whole time. So it'll be interesting to see what she knows, B-Tom's like you've said too, of like that feeling deep down. Is that the source of it? Did she find something out from someone? How's Joel been acting a certain way all of this time? It'll just be, hopefully we get more info on that.
Yeah, I would say the only thing that annoys me about Ellie is just it's not Bella Ramsey's acting. It's just like her character. It's like you said, Kyle. She's 19. She doesn't want to be just like cooped up in Jackson, Wyoming, guarding the gate. She wants to be out adventuring. That's kind of been her MO since even season 1 when she was trapped inside of the original refugee camp that they were in. I forget what it was with the
It's Boston, right?
Was it Boston?
Boston would have been the initial city that they were.
Yeah,
in.
but she's 19 and her and Dina like pissed me off in the fact that they're just teenagers. They're not making mature decisions. They're just wandering off. They're not listening to anybody. And it's like, if you just listen, things would be so much easier for you, but they're teens. They don't do that. That's, we were all the same way, I'm sure, but.
Yeah. So I'll get this out of the way. Bella Ramsey looks nothing like Ellie from the games. That's just, it is what it is. And I texted it in our chat. Going into season 1, I was pretty concerned about it. By episode 2, I was like, oh, that's right. Bella Ramsey is a phenomenal actress. So, and I think when we get a little bit more of Abby, I'll go over that, but she's getting some similar hate. Abby does not necessarily look the part, not the least of which is because Abby is supposed to be able to kick all 3 of our asses at the same time. She's like described as a bull of a human being. Like she's just jacked, and the girl Caitlin Dever that they got to play her is not that. Maybe traditionally beautiful and petite, but from everything I've read, she's like, hey, I see the hate. It's hard not to see it. Like, I know the character. I want to bring it to life. I want to do it justice. So it's like, people just knock off the toxicity, recalibrate your expectations. It doesn't look like the person from the video games, but I mean, they're capable of playing the part, and so far they've done a good job, except for that one line that I already said I hated.
Yeah.
So yeah,
this is a good intro too. I think this scene to a character that I hope we get more of in Jesse. I am enjoying the kind of role that he's playing in a way. We don't get a ton of it, like I said, but I'm looking forward to getting more of him. I really like his actor. I don't know if either of you guys have seen Beef on, I think, Netflix.
No, but yeah,
he plays such a funny role in that show, and it's so different to seeing him be like Mr. Responsible here. Like he's like a little brother that just plays League of Legends all the time kind of in that show, and now he's like the responsible guy that's like, you know, making things work a little bit. So I'm just excited to see him. I think stuck out, him and Dina, obviously, as like the two newer characters that I'm really looking forward to this season.
Yeah, I think, and there was a little bit of tension I felt between him and Ellie, at least when she kind of makes that comment of, I don't want you to have people holding back against me when fighting. I don't know if that's because she knows the history of Dina and him, you know, breaking up, getting back together, breaking up. I don't know if she's annoyed about that, but there seemed to be a little bit of tension between her and Jesse in this scene.
Well, you got to remember,
Ellie,
at the root of that, Jesse
thinks her. I'm sorry, go ahead.
At the root of that, Jesse also says, I don't need to be answering to Joel when you come home with a broken nose. So again, Joel is kind of at the root of why people are treating her differently.
Fair.
Yeah, but I think she thinks her boot size is probably a little bigger than it is, you know, where she wants that dude to punch her as hard as he can in the face. And Jesse's like, you would literally be unconscious. Like, it's okay that you have some limitations, you know, like you're not completely infallible. You're not Superwoman. Like, it's okay.
That's just Ellie being Ellie. And for our video game players listening, she bursts open the barn doors and kind of this camera angle of just panning over this seemingly thriving community of Jackson, Wyoming. We know what this world looks like. I can think of few better places to be than right here in Jackson. It seems like they got everything on lockdown, but just the way that they did the camera angle, the cinematography, that's like right out of the video game, kind of like the first playable sequence as Ellie. So I appreciated that.
I love that shot. That shot was incredible. It was honestly crazy to see how much Jackson, Wyoming has also developed from how 5 years ago from where we saw it. It felt like it was just almost a strip back in the day, and now it's a legitimately thriving city, which was really cool to see.
So moving on, though, we get our first look at Joel, who is tinkering with the circuit breaker, and also our first look at this new character, Dina, who Joel greets with a "Hey kiddo," which is a greeting we would usually think is reserved for Ellie. So something there. And Dina's just coming saying issues with the foreman, you know, some roots growing out of the pipes. Keep an eye on those roots, people. More on that later. But Dina also is kind of like, hey, show me what you're doing with the circuit breaker. So she likes Joel. She's kind of filling that role as well. But then the conversation shifts to Ellie, who even Dina has seen there's a rift between these two. And Joel is reluctant to say, oh, I got no clue. I think it's just a 19-year-old pushing away from whatever I am, father figure, but a parent. And this whole thing, again, it's like, it's easy enough to say it's just a moody teenager, but Joel, you know what you did, dude.
Yeah, for sure.
I liked the way she clocks the therapy speak, you know, because that season 1 Joel would have never said, like, I can't be responsible for the emotional state of others, you know. I thought that was so good. And I think that I love again, I'm gonna say it like this because it's only episode 1 and these characters are new, but kind of this role that Dina is supposed to be playing, where like Joel, it seems to feel comfortable talking to her, even beyond just the mundane day-to-day things, which I think is, hopefully there's some potential there for some great like emotional conversations. And then, you know, she plays like that middleman role between all of them. So I think that Dina is going to be a lot of fun for all of those scenes. And it's just funny that Joel's just like, we get it more throughout the episode too, but he's just like the guy, you know, he's just like the fixer in the area, which true. It seems like he's a great candidate for that role, but it's just funny.
Maria and Tommy seem to be like the town leaders, but definitely he is the primary construction guy, a city planner, if you will. So like you said, he's just the guy, which is awesome for Joel. And a little bit of a contrast from last season. We can tell this 5-year time skip maybe did him well. in our season 1 coverage, I always said the duality of Joel. Like there is this fierce, like violent person within him, but at the surface, he is a very good-natured man, wants to do right, is generally loving and caring to the people around him. So the fact that he took up this role, now he has, these teenagers gravitating towards him, looking for him for advice. It makes sense. Also a little bit gray on the beard.
Pedro looks great. He's the man.
He's looking good.
Always.
Yeah, he's looking
Always.
great as always.
2 things. The first one will be maybe like a legitimate question that'll just float around, and that Dina doesn't seem to have any family. I'd be curious to learn more about that. Is she just a refugee that kind of popped up? Because maybe is she then seeing Joel as this father figure in the absence of having one herself? We know that they're kind of, let's say, adults at this point, if they're 18, 19, 20. So does she really need one? But just kind of curious about what her background is, because right now it seems like she's all positives.
Right.
And we got to get some, negatives for a full rounded character. Where's the sad stuff? What's going on with her? So we'll see. And the second one will be, correct me if I'm wrong, but she was saying that Joel is the foreman that was letting them like slacking and not outside. That's how I took that, where she was like being sarcastic with them. Like, I have these issues and our foreman's nowhere to be found. And he was like, I'll be right out there. She basically caught him tinkering and like doing not what he was supposed to be doing almost.
Okay.
I think you're right, actually. I thought it was just Joel's the guy you would go for to whip a foreman back into shape. But no, I think you're absolutely right. And as for the family of it all, we'll dig deeper into Dina. So I'll just leave that as a ... I love that you're asking those questions, though, and want to know more about her. Also, she is another actress who people might say doesn't necessarily look the part of her video game counterpart, Isabella Merced. Dina in the video games is Jewish. At one point in one of the missions, you kind of go through the ruins of a synagogue, and it's like a little 30-minute part of the game. So they kind of look into that a little bit. What I'll say about Isabella Merced and her acting of Dina is that it was probably the highlight of the episode for me. I thought she did a fantastic job. I think she's crushing it. So keep doing her. And I haven't seen much hate about her. So fingers crossed that continues. I think she's doing a great job.
Yeah,
for sure.
So moving on, though, we got Tommy and Ellie sniping at some infected in the distance. And what I'll say about these is in the video games, you kind of are playing through it. And then this scene specifically is told as a flashback, like kind of in the middle of the game. So I think they're just the way this story is going, using some of those flashbacks in the beginning, which is totally fine. It makes sense. But I distinctly remember playing through this scene. It was awesome. Season 1 did such a good job of bringing iconic video game scenes back into the show, and this is just a continuation of that. But they have a nice little back and forth. The conversation kind of evolves into, hey, let me go on the patrol. Tommy's like, no, you ran off on your own and tried to take out more zombies than you could chew. And the comparisons to Joel. So Tommy's a great character. I'll say that. So what did you guys think of this scene?
I love Tommy. Tommy might be, I wouldn't say, it's tough to say my favorite character because he's really is a secondary character, but I just really like everything about him for the most part, especially the kind of contrast and almost foil that he can be to Joel, but also, as we'll probably talk about in, maybe right after this conversation, of like they have that brotherly camaraderie that works really well. I don't know how to take it of like how much of a pushover he is though with the Ellie stuff. For me, maybe interpreting it of like Ellie does have that kind of like golden goose-esque thing going with the people that know that she's immune. I think that, and again, like we've mentioned, the Joel of it all, of like people don't want to misstep around her. And I don't even know how conscious she is about the Joel stuff. Like, it seems like she wouldn't like that so much, that people treat her differently because of Joel, but she's obviously using it to her advantage in this situation. And it just seems like it gets close this episode, but Ellie's going to get herself into some situation by forcing the hand of others around her because she doesn't like what they're saying, and it's going to be bad. And I really hope it doesn't reflect poorly on Tommy and like give him a lot of guilt if something happens. That's what I'm not looking forward to, because I love me some Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy's a great character. I love how you can kind of tell when we're in a cutscene of a video game versus like the actual gameplay, because when she's doing the sniping, I'm just kind of picturing like, okay, here's how you zoom into the sniper scope. Here's how you shoot the clickers, and you want to aim for the head. So it's and even later on when we get to the market, you can see those parallels as well. I think it's really funny, and it does feel like I am playing a video game, and you can definitely tell the moments of when you're like actually getting into gameplay versus just the cutscenes. But yeah, this is Ellie and Tommy bonding. I definitely took it as Ellie's just going to do what she wants anyway. I didn't kind of see it really as the golden egg, but maybe it does play into it a little bit. But mostly it's just her. I think once she says she's going to do something, no one is going to stop her from doing it, because she's just going to end up doing it. I agree. I think Tommy's a great character. He's just so sweet and just so warming to be around. It feels like Joel has those moments, but we also know him that the events of the past have really hardened him a lot versus Tommy. So that's where the differences really start to kick in. But it is funny too that Ellie and Joel are just kind of one and the same at this point now. They've had their battle hardened experiences. They've been surviving together. They've been through hell and back. And Ellie is definitely reflecting those traits of Joel here.
I'm almost curious, and maybe this is not the right way to say it, but Ellie is aware that she's immune to what's going on, which obviously makes her reckless.
And
in a way too. And it feels, I think the combination of that and the sway that Joel has over the people around them all, it just almost makes it seem like she probably feels like she's immune to consequences.
Fair.
As well. Like, what negatives have happened with the way that, like, the fence work was supposed to be a punishment,
right?
But it just ends up being putting her in another situation where she can act reckless and go crazy, which we'll talk about, which then leads to a consequence that isn't necessarily a consequence because of the fact that she's immune to those kinds of consequences with the infection. So it just feels like they're setting us up for this
big fail.
The other shoe is going to fall at some point.
Yeah, no, I agree. And given the context, Tommy tells us on the last patrol she bit off more than she should have been able to chew, or at least at a minimum didn't follow protocol, left the group and did try a 2v1. So that was not okay. The fact that they're letting her back on a patrol, is it Joel's influence? Is it the fact that Tommy and her are tight and he could pull that string? I did love when he was like, you and Joel are exactly alike. And she said, then you should know you're not going to win this conversation. So he's like, crap. Yep, you're right. And the other part of this too, maybe Tommy's hand-offedness and not kind of asserting his influence over Ellie, maybe that wasn't the best way, is that he has a family of his own. Him and Maria, maybe not married, are certainly together. They have a kid of their own. So part of this, I think, is this is kind of Joel's area of, he'll handle it, whatever. And it did seem as though Joel had a little bit of influence putting her on the fence duty, probably because Joel is concerned about her, because while she is immune, a clicker can still rip your damn head off. Like, she is not immune from that. So a lot of layers. Bingetown TV loves layers. So does Crixus. It's a deep cut there, people. So next scene, we have Joel meeting with Maria, and this is just emphasizing what both of their roles in the community have become. He maybe is this foreman, city planner, whatever. And Maria says, hey, we got to build faster and we got to build more because there are a lot of refugees and they're kind of piling up faster than we can find a place to house them. And Joel's knee-jerk reaction is, again, kind of that ferocious, not ferocious, but decisive, hey, we got to...
cynical in a way.
Yeah, put your own mask on before you put your kid's mask on. We got to make sure everybody in Jackson already is taken care of. Then we can expand. But he even clocks himself and is like, listen, I want to help everybody, but that's the reality. And Maria reminds him, hey, Joel, listen, you and Ellie were refugees when you came here. So and right there just showed that duality. He knows what has to be done, but also wants to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the aspect of the kind of logistics of the settlement. I just think it adds a depth to the world. It also gives us a level of conflict that's separate from the zombies, the monsters, the clickers, everyone that's infected, because they're not just battling, because they seem fairly settled
Right.
in terms of like protection wise. It does seem like their number one issue at this point is like logistics and resources. They're not so scared of like being overrun necessarily. And that's just, some more stress for Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, they do have it on lockdown. One, resources can't be that bad if they're having a New Year's party where they're like barbecuing, they got sparklers, people are drinking. So they're pretty comfortable. And also, they're pretty on the money with these patrols, where the entire point of the patrol in this episode was, hey, we saw 6 infected took on a bear. And then at kind of the council meeting, Tommy's like, 6 infected isn't necessarily a horde, but they're all a little bit on edge because they know how these things can snowball. And then you have a ruined Jackson settlement, etc., etc. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The next scene is actually this awesome therapy session between Joel and Gail. Cameo from Catherine O'Hara, which is awesome. She's in the studio right now, which we're covering over on the Core podcast. So 2 very different roles, but she knocked this one out of the park. She's fantastic. Joel pays with a bag of weed, which, it's just stems. What are we in high school? That was great. She's like already drunk because it's her birthday and she doesn't have her husband. But yeah, guys, walk me through what you were thinking in this therapy session, which is a completely made up for the television series scene. This was not in the games.
Interesting. I did not know that, but I will say that this was easily my favorite part of the episode, without a doubt. I mean, we start off with the funny exchange of the weeds, and it's just the basic currency, it seems like, at least for the therapist, which in itself is ironic. And you're kind of expecting a little bit of comedic beats, especially with how it opens like that, and knowing that Joel is this like tough guy and he's in therapy. We were kind of setting up for a little bit, I thought, of like a comedic setup here, but it does take a very dark turn, which I was surprised at. And I think it adds more to why I like this scene so much, is that Joel was responsible for killing what was her name? I'm sorry, I don't want to just keep saying the therapist.
Gail.
Yeah, Joel killed Gail's husband. Now, I don't think we know at what point that was specifically.
She said this was her first birthday without her husband, so within a year.
Yeah, and we don't know exactly how it got done, I guess, but she trauma dumps on him because she is aware that Joel is kind of, I wouldn't say trauma dumps, but she is aware that Joel is hiding something from her. And the way for her to kind of break down, or at least try to break down Joel's barrier on that, is to relate his situation to kind of her situation and saying, look, I despise you with all of my guts because you took my husband away from me. But at the same time, I'm here to help you. It's not healthy for me to, have these thoughts and just turn you away. You are someone that is in need of help, and I want to help you. And I think that just provided a very deep level of just relationship, at least between these two. I was kind of like shocked at first that she was just going off on him, but it all did come full circle with how she was basically letting out her deepest, darkest secret so that Joel could then also follow up with his deep, dark secret that she is very aware that he's hiding from her. But Joel doesn't really see it as like while it is like his greatest achievement to save Ellie, it is also his like biggest shame in a sense, because he lied. And it's just so complex and he can't process that yet. And we see that at the end here. But this was my favorite scene of the entire episode. Absolutely.
This gave me both Sopranos and Shrinking vibes.
Yeah.
Sopranos I never thought that we would get this, but I love the idea of like our very masculine, threatening, tough main male character then like sits down for therapy to explore his feelings. It gives such an interesting arena to kind of explore who he is and what he's feeling. And I'm sure Dr. Melfi would have liked to say what Gail said to Joel here sometimes to Tony, although that necessarily wasn't the point of those scenes in The Sopranos, but also shrinking him where this is not what she's supposed to be doing. This is not recommended for her to straight up say to him, I hate you. Right. And it just reminded me of the way that a lot of the things go in Shrinking when he goes off book. But I agree, Dave. I think this was probably my favorite scene of the whole entire episode. And I think she's really getting at a good point. And I like that what I mentioned earlier too, the scene with Dina, where he says, like, I, can't be responsible for the emotional state of other people. And she's totally right in the sense of, like, we can sit here and talk and, like, you can become fluent in this language of therapy. But, like, if you're not coming here as your honest self, then, like, there is no point in us doing it. Like, at this point, like, I would just be teaching you phrases. Like, we're not doing any real work if you can't come here and be honest. And I hope this isn't like a one-off. I hope we get more of this. I'm kind of nervous we might not, because he leaves obviously in a tizzy. And I think because he doesn't really view what he did as wrong.
Well, Dave put it well. It's both his biggest achievement, that he fulfilled his fatherly duties and protected Ellie, but also his biggest shame, because he thought it was his responsibility to save her from the truth, which I would argue was probably not the best way to go about it. But also shooting up the hospital probably wasn't the best way to go about it. There was probably a gray area. However, going back to that episode, the Fireflies were super pushy. I could argue they didn't go about it well. There was some intermediate steps that were skipped and skipped and skipped. The one thing Gail does say when she's revealing her truth is that she yields. Joel, I know you had no choice but to kill my husband. So I would assume there was some sort of firefight against the two. I'm not sure where, if that happened when he first came to Jackson or what, but she says, and I know I should be able to forgive you because of that circumstance, but I can't. I hate you. You killed my husband. It's as simple as that. But Dave, like you said, she does want to help him. And I have to agree, like 3 for 3. This was probably my favorite scene of the episode. The scene with the infected, as always, was great. It was an awesome action scene, but this Gail character was a fantastic addition. And I think part of it is, of course she had a few drinks in her already, but part of it is, listen, bud, you're a grown ass man, zombie apocalypse. Are we going to cut the bullshit here? Are you going to do you actually want to succeed in therapy and make a breakthrough? Because you're lying to me. I know you're lying to me. Are we just going to sit here and lie to each other for an hour, week in and week out, and you complain about your hormonal teenage daughter like every parent in the history of parenthood has? Or let me help you. And some great face acting. He was right on the precipice, but he couldn't do it, and the tears trickled down. So we'll see where that goes. Dave, what do you got?
I will say, just to add for Joel, there is not like there's an NDA, in these times. He could easily unload all that information and she could just tell everyone and just say, and I get that puts them back in a precarious pickle, but just to defend him, I think he still probably should have talked things out. It's just always, I think, better to talk things out rather than just bottle them up. But again, I understand where he's coming from, that he is nervous that if he were to tell her the actual truth, that she wouldn't just kind of keep that to herself, that she would go to someone else. That person could go to someone else. And then we're back in the position of Ellie gets captured, attempted to be killed for, medicine purposes. We'll see, though. We'll see.
Anything else for that scene?
All good.
Yeah, it was a good one. So we move forward. Ellie's blasting some rock music in her garage. I was reading an article. It's fun to consider. Essentially, pop culture ended in the year 2003 when the outbreak happened. So, CDs, cassette players, like old 90s and early 2000s grunge band posters. It's just a cool vibe. But
wow, no Juice WRLD or Pop Smoke. That's crazy.
What an awful world.
That's crazy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's the worst thing about this world, actually. So, but who comes in other than Dina, who she will apparently be going on patrol with, doing the Alpine Trail, and she reveals she traded some old hiking boots for this brand new rifle holster, which looks pretty cool. But then Dina kind of looks down and was like, "You should have kept the boots," because she's in freaking Wyoming in the winter wearing Chuck Taylors, which is kind of a staple of the Ellie look. So we'll let it slide. But there's a little bit of a moment. She's like, "Let me help you put that coat on." They get in real close, and Ellie is confused and excited and happy and feeling all the things. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
But we barely have time to take it in because they're late and they have to go to the fence to kind of initiate this patrol. We see Jesse again, who is kind of laying down the law, even though, as Ellie points out, you're only 4 years older than I am. And I mean, this is definitely bordering on just straight disrespectful to him. I mean, this is a serious thing. You're going out into the unknowns. Who knows if you're going to get ambushed by like a horde of 20 of them? It's like, you got to be on top of your stuff. They're rolling their eyes and snickering and like,
they were already talking about how we've seen not like clusters of them, but more than just the average amount of just 1 or 2 clickers. Like there's 5 or 6. You definitely would want to be taking this serious. This is where they were kind of pissing me off. But again, they're pissing me off because they're teenagers. They're just, they're not taking anything seriously. But I was definitely getting frustrated with here. It's just, listen to Jesse, man. Jesse seems like he knows what he's talking about.
Exactly. Mature Jesse. He was like, listen, people around here look up to you guys. Like, why don't we?
Yeah, and that was a nice touch. And then they still just throw that away later on. Just, that was such a good way to, Jesse played his cards very well there, and they just refused to do anything about it.
Yeah, I liked the I mean, super small detail that barely matters, but like the color-coded like cloth system, I thought was just fun. A level of paranoia, I'm sure, because again, that human element maybe of
it sounds like they changed the colors often too. Like it's not always green is bad, and you know, it seems like they rotate the color. So I'd definitely be interested in knowing what that was about. Because I know for a fact when he said green is bad, I was like, that's not how that usually works. But they have a system, I'm sure.
I was watching with Emily and she was like, green is bad, yellow is good. Oh, I'd mess that up. They'd shoot me on sight. Yeah. I'd be like flying green for good.
100%. That was the same thing that crossed my mind. Yeah.
Two colors. Got to get this right. But yeah, Jesse, I mean, what can I say? He's Jackson, Wyoming's resident good guy. Even despite their childish antics, he's like, guys, come on, take it seriously. Like, let's go. I think they might have to reevaluate who they decide is the leader on these patrols, because I'm not sure Kat was quite up to the task of wrangling in Ellie and Dina. Maybe just keep those 3 separate or whatever. I mean, Kat was trying to do it by the books, but she wasn't good at laying down the law. So we fast forward to the patrol, a little bit of, dare I say, flirting, where Dina's asking if Ellie's going to the New Year's party later on. Are you going with, she describes the Cat because she's the other one, alluding to there's probably only 2 lesbians in all of Jackson, Wyoming. Ellie's like, why Cat? And Dina's like, well, come on. So Ellie is still playing disinterested, but Dina says, hey, let's go together. It'll be fun. We'll get high. You know, it'll be great. But the good vibes are interrupted by an ominous trail of blood, which Kat takes one look at and says, let's go back and report. Dina's like, we're recon, so let's recon, bitch. So they push onwards despite Kat wanting to go back. And they arrive at the scene. Yeah, right. They arrive at the scene with like 6 infected bodies down. Obviously got into a scrap with a bear. So it's just this bad scene that they walk into. And then they surmise that a couple of the infected seem to have made their way back into the grocery store, which kind of starts this whole aside of Dina and Ellie. Again, Kat has no say in the matter. They're just going to do whatever the hell they want. So they climb up there. Dave, I think you alluded to it earlier. Just the whole like grocery store advertising and stuff, the signs, it feels like you're playing a video game and walking through a video game level.
As
When
soon
they're
as Kat's done with her spiel, I could tell that, okay, that's when the fade out comes in, and then you're loading up as Ellie and you're
Yep.
getting ready to climb the truck and you're going in. And I could see it all happening right before my eyes.
It doesn't exactly play out like this, but they pulled some elements from the game. So for sure it evoked those things. And when they're kind of up under the window, they're crouching and listening to see how many crawlers. That's the TV versions of a mechanic in the game. Like a whole thing is you kind of crouch and you listen and you can kind of see the silver silhouettes like through walls, and you can kind of see any infected near you as you're kind of traversing through what level it was. So another nod to the game. I'm always going to call them out, so be ready for it. And yeah, this is a cool scene. Not only because we see a clicker, which, you know, they kind of 2v1 it, and ooh, the old bottle trick. Another mechanic in the game. You throw the bottle, distract the clicker, jump on their back, and kick their ass. So that was good. But first, Ellie is kind of with her flashlight exploring the environment. A big part of the Last of Us video games is exploring, picking up little knickknacks, notes. The dog won Employee of the Month in July or whatever. So all just little Easter eggs from the game. But yeah, obviously, this scene progresses as it does. She falls through the floor after killing the clicker. Dina can't get down, which leaves her one-on-one with this new foe that we haven't seen before. So I kind of talked us through and got us to the meat of this scene. What did you guys think?
It felt like very video game, obviously, but as I'm watching, I just kept thinking, like, why are we walking down all of these aisles? Like, why are we not getting to somewhere where we can eliminate some options of, like, get your back to like a wall, like get into like a cool, like we need like a line of sight that isn't just we're vulnerable in all four directions. I was like, my heart was like, where, come on, get somewhere, even though we know that she's immune, but it did feel like it's definitely very, very, very video game-esque. And again, it's this Ellie overconfidence in a way is just they're just setting it up to be not her fatal flaw at this point, because I'm confident that she won't kick the bucket, at least not this early in the story. Geez, let's be honest. But it is kind of, it's really felt like the main theme almost of her story for this episode was just this level of overconfidence.
Mm-hmm. I also got a kick out of the interaction that her and Dina had as they entered in the building, when they're just like just imitating, like shanking the shit out of one of the clickers. Like that was really funny and I was trying to it was hard to piece together too what the plan was, but once she started flashing the bottle, it kind of started making sense a little bit. But yeah, this was the tension that I guess, I don't know if I would say I missed because I'm a baby, but you know, the sound kind of goes out and I'm like, ah, shit. Here we go again with the fucking pop-ups. I'm not ready for this, you know, buttholes kind of clenching, just waiting for that clicker to just kind of screeching in your face, and I'm waiting for it. So I mean, we hate those kinds of moments with the tension and you know something's coming, but you don't know what. Ellie again proving that she's a badass. 1v1's a clicker just with her bare hands. Very impressive, I think, not even needing to rely on the gun, while I'm sure they didn't want to draw the attention of other clickers for that reason, but at the same time, you know, shows how capable they are. Yeah, I mean, this new clicker is quite a problem. I mean, it's calculating, it was hiding, it was stalking, and we saw that it had eyes too. So I'm very curious. Well, I guess we can just make the assumption that they probably don't rely on echolocation and that they can see properly.
Yeah, so new terminology. The new one is officially going to be called a stalker. Okay. Is what we're going to call these guys. And they are, I guess, stage 2 of the infection. We know like a week or two, you're in bad shape, but you can still see clearly. You're kind of just a human that's messed up. Mm-hmm. Stage 2 is going to be this stalker who still has somewhat their eyesight, but they're starting to develop the echolocation. And for whatever reason, they have kind of this animalistic instinct that they will seek shelter. They will kind of stalk you. They'll keep their distance and hide, stay out of your eyesight. But once they get close, they will like attack you with all your might. And what they also like to do is like once you kind of push them off of you, they'll just sprint and hide again and kind of stalk and get closer to you. So they have a level of intelligence that we don't really see from any of the other infected. In The Last of Us Part 1, so pretty much all of season 1, but in the game, I think you saw maybe 2 of these guys. So they're probably, there are some super rare kinds of infected, but these are the rarest of maybe the ground soldiers. I'll put it that way. In The Last of Us Part 2, they play a little bit more of a predominant role in the game. Just playing through, you see them a lot more frequently. So it makes sense why they didn't introduce this new kind of infected until season 2. And when they take this information back to the community, it seems like nobody in Jackson has seen it either. So, you know, they're pretty rare is what I'm getting at, but definitely formidable.
Yeah.
Okay. That was kind of going to be my question almost of like, I interpreted it as like a mutation over time. Like it's been 25 years. Like at some level we're getting some new types. Although like you mentioned, if it's like something that happens within like a few weeks of being infected, then you can you transition out of it? It seems like, because I know in season 1 we got that big thing that was coming out of the ground, and it felt like that was like that's been that way for a long time, and where it's like eventually everyone can get there, but
I think that is the case, and I did describe this stalker as a stage 2. I was reading the wiki fandom, whatever, and that's what it described it as. For my money, I would assume that not every infected progress through that stalker phase. A lot of them just go from the messed up, I think they just call them runners, which is like the stage 1, if you will, and kind of just progress directly to a clicker again, because you don't see these stalkers that much. So is it a little bit of a mutation? Probably something like that. I don't think everything progresses that way, but it's definitely something new to our characters here.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, shout out, Dave kind of mentioned it a little bit of like they're kind of making this plan at the start of the scene when they're on like the little garage overhang, even before they get in the window, and Ellie wants to be gung-ho, John Rambo, let's get at it. And Dina seemed to be a lot more like calm and composed, and I liked that aspect of her character, and that we've seen her kind of goofing off until this point, but when it gets down to doing the business of things, she seems a lot more, you know, conservative, careful, by the book, has her head screwed on maybe a little straighter.
Yeah, even Dave, the scene that you highlighted when they had the back and forth, when Ellie takes it to like stabbing herself in the neck, Dina kind of like nods it off and is like, okay, back to business. Like, let's actually do the thing. So no, completely right. I mean, Dina's a great character. I'll say that. She adds a little bit of levity because she's bubbly, she's kind, almost a maternal instinct, if you will, wants to protect others, but like you said, has her head screwed on right. There's a job to do, she wants to carry out the job. So
I can already see a scenario where Ellie's hubris ends up being Dina's downfall.
I truly, honestly, based on how season 1 went with us getting introduced with new characters and then getting something painfully awful happening to them, I was like, Dina's cooked here. Like, Ellie's looking up at her. I was just waiting for a clicker to drag Dina as she's like trying to communicate with Ellie from up top. I was like, this is it. Dina's just already cooked, but she survived, and I'm glad she did.
It seems like Ellie has some lessons to learn, and
Dina could be the
worlds like this, situations like this, they usually come at a price. And I'm very nervous that price is going to be Dina.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds horrible. Gosh, I hope not. Moving on, though, I already kind of went over. They share the information about the stalker to the Jackson Council, whatever you want to call them. Oddly enough, we've talked about it before. They got out with just a slap on the wrist, and Maria was like, well, Dina was lying. She didn't see anything, but I do believe Ellie. Like, that seems legit. And they're all like, wow, this is weird. One of the people says something crazy profound, like reality is all just one communal hunch, and everybody gives her a side eye, and she's like, oh no, it's a quote. Like, trust me, I'm not weird. So that was great. They adjourned for New Year's. We flash to Ellie, who of course doesn't just want to have a bite mark chilling. So she actually takes her knife and fills in the bite mark to make it look like not a bite mark, which sucks. And then she stitches herself up. You know, that would be the cool thing about surviving in a world like this. Is like, you would probably just like stitch a giant gash on your arm and not even bat an eye. Like, you would just be a lot more.
You're farm tough, as they say in American
Yeah,
Dad.
you're farm tough. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, for her too, you can see how the benefit if she can just stitch the bites up.
Yeah, I thought that was
and not spread it, you know, because our boy Jimmy is gonna hide it and spread it, as he's already admitted in season 1 that he wouldn't tell us if he got bit.
Yeah, I like that touch of her connecting the teeth marks to make it look like that she wasn't bitten, because at first I thought she was like trying to drain the poison out, but then at the same time I'm thinking she's immune. Why is she trying to drain the poison out? But then it started making sense that she's just trying to hide it from everyone else.
They make the cordyceps so gross right after she gets bit and she lifts her shirt and is like, damn, this sucks. You can see the little tendrils like already squirming around in the bite mark. It's just disgusting. And
I'm also curious, she had this scar on her arm, right, in season 1?
Yeah.
And it looked like her arm, I know she got the tattoo, and it also looked like kind of like burned.
So I forget the story about that. She has been the cover story for that scar is that it was a chemical burn. And I forget if maybe immediately after she got bit, she tried to burn it. I'm not sure if that's a confirmed piece of lore or if maybe the bite mark, even though she's immune, kind of develops into this messed up looking scar. I'm not entirely sure exactly how it ends up to that, but her cover story is that that thing on her arm is a chemical burn.
It seemed like it wasn't like her first rodeo, let's say. So either her and Joel have had that conversation before of like, okay, if X, then Y. Or, maybe she has done it before too. Because it felt like quick thinking. I was like Dave said in the scene, I was like, oh, very, very good idea.
Well, she's irresponsible, but she's also pretty bright. And I think even though she hides it, she knows how serious it is if that information were to get out. So she's not taking any chances. Anyway, though, later that night, Joel comes in to see her, interrupts her when she's journaling. The journal is another kind of mechanic in the game, which is actually annoying because you'll be playing through it and then it'll force you to read a journal. And it's like, okay, it's cool, but not cool. So she writes down the barbecue line, don't fuck it up. And that's definitely the kind of stuff she does. Also, she loves dad jokes. So when Dina said barbecue, what do you call bear's ribs? Like, oh my gosh, that hit home with Ellie, believe you me.
That's funny. I like that.
Joel, just being the good dad that he is, giving her a space, but says, hey, are you going to come to the party tonight? It would be nice to show some face. She's like, yeah, whatever. And Joel, realizing that he may not be able to fix his relationship with his pseudo daughter, does realize that he can certainly fix some guitar strings. So he's like, oh, that guitar, have you been playing? I can fix that. Strings look bad. I'm just going to fix it. He needs to keep busy, this guy, Joel. So
yeah, it was very dad, very parent to like come into and see the lights are low while she's like writing. It's like, turns the light on. Like, is that better? Yeah. I was like, that's such a parent thing to do. That's so funny.
Walk out, leave the door open, some shit like that.
Exactly.
So we fast forward to the New Year's Eve party and things get a little spicy here, but it's Ellie and Jesse just kind of chilling at the bar together. And there's a camaraderie obviously between these two, Jesse and Ellie, maybe not so evident in the earlier scenes, but definitely in this one, they're talking as friends. Jesse, it's already been established, has been on again, off again with Dina, and Ellie and him are just like, she's putting on quite a show because Dina's high out of her mind, being the life of the party, dancing with everybody in center stage. So she's just like crushing it, and they're just admiring her from afar. And Ellie says something like, I give you guys 2 weeks, you'll be back together. And Jesse's like, I'm not so sure about that. And that's kind of all we get before Dina whisks her away. And we have this really tender, heartfelt scene where they're kind of flirting, and it finally clicks with Ellie. Oh, there could be a pulse here.
Yeah, definitely.
The line, the way she says it too. And she's like, they're talking about the eyes, and Ellie's like, no one sees me as a threat because it seems to be maybe established that Dina is what's the right way to say it? I don't even know. The diamond of the dance, maybe. That's
Yeah.
totally not the thing people say, but
bell of the ball. Yeah,
the bell of the ball. There you go.
Yeah.
I knew I was in the
Diamond
alliteration.
of the dance isn't bad though.
Diamond of the dance. That was nice.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Okay. I read books. And I just like the way it all went down, of where I just love the line, like, they should be terrified. And when it clicks for her, like you said, and then they kiss, it was like, woo! Like I was hyped. I felt very, very excited for the situation. Although now that we're talking through it, and I'm like, oh man, Dina not feeling confident, because she might be the lesson that Ellie has to learn about life and things like that. Not that she hasn't learned her fair share probably at this point. I mean, we know what happened with her friend Riley as well. And it just feels like, man, it's not going to end well. But we're going to enjoy it while we got it, though, because Dina's great. And I hope that they have a little bit of a relationship that develops, because it also, again, like I mentioned earlier with Dina, that feels like a bridge there can be built between Ellie and Joel through Dina, and a little bit of drunk Gale.
Yeah, I think Joel would certainly approve of Ellie dating Dina. I think they're a great couple. I mean, we only got introduced to them, like their relationship this episode, but absolutely, I think they are a good pair. They're like opposite enough that they can balance each other out, but then they also have a lot of common ground in terms of, just wanting to just be teens, just fuck around and have fun at the same time. Yeah, and kill a bunch of clickers at the same time. So like they have those similarities, but they're also a little different enough that they can balance each other out. I think they are a good couple. I'm kind of with Kyle. I'm just going to enjoy it while it lasts. Dina's definitely, she's got those swan vibes, those swan Sean.
It's just
vibes.
tough. Like, I brought up the Riley thing, and the moral of that story almost was, again, Ellie was very sheltered, and it's natural that she wanted to explore and be adventurous, but her not following the rules and being reckless led to what happened with Riley.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like she is making some of those same exact mistakes here in a very similar situation, which obviously she has more freedom here. She's older, and, people understand that she's immune, and she has, Tommy, and she's got Joel, and she's got Dina, and these people. And it feels like they're buttering us up for this. Like, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, or fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Like, I think she's going to get fooled twice here. And then unfortunately our girl Dina, so I'm going to try to enjoy her while I think she's still around, because I'm not feeling great about her long-term story.
Cool. Well, I'm rooting for these two crazy kids, and this entire party scene with the lights, the slow dance between them is right out of the video games. I think Dina Isabella Merced needed to crush these line reads, and she certainly did. Like I said, she was a highlight of the episode for me.
Do we get the slur in the video game?
I think she's high or drunk, so probably. Yeah, no.
I'm talking about the old guy, when the old guy drops the D word on him.
I want to say yes. Grouchy old Seth is in the video games. I thought you meant was she like slurring her speech? I was like, maybe. I think it's canon that she was high and or drunk. No, I do think Grouchy old Seth is part of the video games. If memory serves, yes, his line is delivered the same way. And Joel comes in to protect Ellie, which I think was the right move by him. Certainly not when Ellie clocked it, because come on, Joel, you can't do anything right. I'm Ellie. And that's just tough, man. I don't need your fucking help. Are you kidding me? Seth, take a hike, bud.
Yeah, I mean, old man grouchy Seth, whatever, definitely deserved that. It's funny that you mentioned that for the video games, because I actually saw a clip where in the video games, Joel actually kind of just like pushes him. He doesn't like aggressively shove him to the ground.
Yeah.
And it's more of just like a, hey man, like get out of here kind of push. But I think the guy deserved it. I mean, these kids are just having fun, and then he throws out a slur, and it's like, all right, buddy, you pack your bags. You're not living in Jackson, Wyoming anymore.
He wasn't totally off base at the start.
Yeah,
it was like, okay, family event.
Yeah.
maybe the teenagers shouldn't be drunk and high and making out on the dance floor, but then he just finishes it up and it was like, hey, oh,
It's like,
so
all right, pal,
completely
you're
agree.
gone. You're gone. Yeah.
He was all
But
good for a second there. Completely agree. But, events transpire the way that they do, and that just drives the wedge deeper between Ellie and Joel. And we have another one of these no words need to be spoken scenes when Ellie returns home from the party later that night, and Joel is just playing the guitar on the porch, and they exchange a look. But again, no words, and she storms off to the garage. So, they're not on the best of terms. There's just a shadow over the relationship right now, which sucks because we love Ellie and Joel.
he just sits on that porch, strums that guitar. Shits his britches. No, this is
my
it's
fat
upsetting.
lady loves to
died in
eat.
a plane crash.
No, this is really though. This is an upsetting scene. I mean, I was so frustrated when Ellie got pissed at Joel for defending her. I mean, we've talked about it. Ellie wants to be or is this, hardened, tough chick, and she wants to defend herself and wants to prove that she can. And when Joel kind of steps in, she takes offense in that. And look, Joel's just trying to rekindle the fire. He's trying to look out for her. He always will, but she can't really see that right now, especially because of the whole, she's questioning the lie, and it's tough to see. It's going to be hard to see. It's hard to see how Joel is going to win her back. Of course, it's going to be some dire situation probably that rekindles their relationship. But for right now, it's very bleak in terms of even Joel doing the right thing per se here. Ellie is still shrugging him off.
My, I guess, concern potentially is the right word is how much runway do we have here? How much time do we have to hit the therapist weekly, vent through our frustrations in the shooting range with Tommy? Like, the ending of this episode is we have 2 threats that are fairly imminent. So it feels like things are going to be moving fast and hot. And maybe that's what we really need. We need the crucible for us to kind of be remade and rework these relationships and kind of put everything out on the table, because our backs are against the wall. It doesn't seem like there's anything that's really forcing them to reconcile. And because at this point they don't have enough housing, and that's Joel's problem. Like, Ellie, what is really her issue beyond hating Joel? It seems like there's really nothing forcing the two of them together. So it feels like a double whammy of revenge seeking super soldiers is not the right way to say it, but rebellious people that have a vendetta, and the actual physical manifestation of the virus and the darkness that's in the world are kind of converging onto Jackson, Wyoming at the same time. And it's not looking great, I would say.
I would agree. If you're in the zombie apocalypse and your biggest issue is a father teenage daughter squabble, you're living large. Actually,
Yeah.
that's pretty good if that's the worst thing you have going on. But Kyle, like you said, we do have 2 imminent threats in, the armored up former Fireflies led by Abby and Owen, and of course the Cordyceps peeking through those pipes. So a good way to end the episode, in my opinion. I mean, it shows that we're not going to be comfortable and situated in Jackson, Wyoming for the entire season. Most likely not. And yeah, for my money, I thought this was a really good episode. It did a lot of heavy lifting, because if you didn't play the video games, it's been what, 2 years, a year and a half at least since the end of season 1. I mean, I even had to watch some stuff like, what the hell? Where did they actually leave it off at the end of season 1? So I think a lot of it was just bringing you back up to speed with the characters, where they're at, and kind of the consequences of how season 1 ended up. And I think they did a really good job for it. Usually season 1, episode 1s of a season, they lend to that. You commit a lot of time kind of just going over the narrative, establishing characters. So I think they set us up to kind of be pedal to the metal going forward, which is a good place to be.
Yeah, those two cliffhangers were so interesting. My mind in regards to the cordyceps in the sewer pipes or whatever, um, I kind of saw it as, I don't know if it was the heat of the firework or the light of the firework that kind of allowed the cordyceps to be alive, or if they were always alive and people just really hadn't been paying attention. I kind of took it as they were not always alive, because we are living in Jackson, Wyoming. It's cold. We know that the cordyceps thrive in the humid or at least warmer conditions, and that's probably base of why we live in Wyoming, or why we're in Wyoming now. So I thought that they were probably just like dead already, and then the moment that the firework kind of was put near it, it kind of pumped, just got the cordyceps to
Reanimated
get
it.
perfect word for it. Yes, exactly. So that's how I took it. I don't know if that's exactly how it was, but yeah, but cliffhangers were amazing. Definitely got a lot to look forward to.
I was kind of curious. I mean, when they initially show the pipe, and I was thinking, okay, that's a lot of plant growth. Like what's going on there? Like, is that normal for pipes to be overtaken by all of this like root and branch growth?
I'm surprised they weren't ready to just burn it too. Like if they saw, like they knew it's a problem, it's going to be a problem for their sewage system eventually. Why not just start clearing that shit out and finding out, oh, maybe this, I don't know. But
well, I mean, maybe if the foreman was actually on site working, I mean, he did tell him to clear it, I guess, but yeah. I mean, that's again could just be a thing of Jill's juggling a lot of things. Some of them are slipping, which then will turn into bigger things. It was almost interesting in the way they shot it, of like we have the opening of the pipe, and then we're moving into the forest with this kind of recon squad. And I don't actually think this, but I was like, you could maybe like, are we maybe to infer that they've like planted something through the pipes to like sabotage the community? Like, is that how they're going to create their opening? Because are they really going to roll in 5v 150? I don't think so.
It could be that their presence is also maybe attracting more clickers around them as well too. Because I saw that too. Because the shot was, we follow the pipe into the forest, and then we see the footsteps, and I'm like, okay, that's like an army footstep, like a footstep of armies of clickers, I thought, but then it ended up being Abby and Owen and the Fireflies. But I think their presence could definitely lend the way to more clickers coming. But again, and also with the pipe plant growth, vegetation, we know it's a hive mind. Is that the fact that they're like kind of, wiggling a little bit, is that indication that they are already communicating with the rest of the hive, saying, hey, we got big activity going on over here, let's get some troops out here? But we'll see.
Could be.
Pipe sabotage thought too is something I've learned from Wheel of Time. So all of our binge Empire people that are I was gonna say double fisting, but dual wielding, maybe double enjoying our Wheel of Time and The Last of Us coverage. Just wanted to throw that out there for all the book readers, Wheel of Time book readers. You probably know what I'm talking about. So, yeah.
Our binge Empire homies are going akimbo. The Last of Us and the Wheel of Time. I
guess what, 1 more week, 2 more weeks now at this point?
Yeah.
Lucky them. All right. Anything else for this episode? That does kind of wrap us up for at least the scenes.
I'm good. I
just want to shout out Tommy, because Tommy had my favorite line of the episode when he just walks in after hunting and just goes, "I missed you, boy." I don't know why I thought that was so funny when he said it. It was obviously heartfelt. It was just, I loved the little twang that he tossed on it. It just was like, yeah, all right, Tommy, you're a fucking good dad, dude.
I want to say they're originally from Texas, is where they started off episode 1, and then they made their way up to Boston, or at least Joel did. So the twang makes sense. Yeah, good line read. And hey, this was acted very well. I said my piece on kind of the new actors in the cast. I think they're doing a great job. So my message to the community is, if you have to adjust expectations, do it, because you're going to make yourself miserable if you're like, well, she doesn't look exactly like Abby. It's like, yeah, well, things are tough. They have an actress. She seems to care about the source material, and so far she's killing it. Isabella Merced is killing it as Dina. Bella Ramsey killing it as always as Ellie. So that's my 2 cents. And that's really all we got for the podcast here. As always, if you like what you heard, give Bingetown TV a follow on Twitter and Instagram. Visit us on bingetowntv.com and subscribe to our show. This is going to be the Binge Empire podcast. Please subscribe to our show on Spotify, YouTube, and the Apple Podcast app, or wherever else you may find your podcast. Once again, we are the Binge Empire podcast. And thanks for listening.